Hi there. Do you have audio? All right. Hey, lady, I got you.
All right,
Welcome.
let me reposition here. Hmm. How is it? Are we on
Yep,
already? Or
you're
we
good.
still
You're
going?
recording and everything. This is perfectly imperfect. I'm not editing any of these, mostly because I don't know how, and also because it just makes it more quirky and fun. So,
Yay!
hey, Amy, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Nicole?
Good. You want to give us a little like recap on who you are, what you do, what your soul work is all about?
Yeah, thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
I'm Aimee Chouinard. I have a company called Chouinard Consulting. I'm a writer, editor, I guess former journalist, although I'd love to get back to that. And I think what would you say? What feeds my soul, or what my
Well,
dharma is?
what you're doing that feeds your soul. Yeah, I mean, all of those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. This, um, reaching out. I mean, right now, given what's going on, I've been doing a lot of reaching out to people I've either lost contact with, might have had a little riff with, maybe just, we kind of lost touch. So sending out a lot of postcards and cards each day and like getting back to snail mail
Yeah,
and
I love it.
thanking my mail lady. Like I put a little card in there for her with thank you because I think they're probably getting a little forgotten and we need them, and gave her a little lunch money. Um, and I'm just creating like how I can further my business online at this point and continue to connect with people, whether it's through public relations work that I do, writing workshops, that type of thing.
What's
Yeah.
your absolute favorite out of everything you do? Like if you number one.
I think definitely the writing, and when I can make a difference with someone as far as that. So if it's a client who's working on a website and perhaps they hadn't thought about going a little bit deeper with their writing or how they're connecting to potential clients, getting them to open up about the story of why they're doing what they're doing. Because I work with a lot of people who either later in life, usually later in life, are finally doing what they'd really love to do. And so there's a reason for that. Either they had, a traumatic experience, or that's usually it. And so I just help them, to write and really connect with themselves and get that out and express that so that they will attract the clients that they want to attract. So I love that, and the writing workshops that I've started doing. And I think just like the what's the high that I'm looking for, the emotional, whatever, soul high that I got from doing that. The first one was like
Yeah.
awesome. I came home and I was just like, all
What
right, this
you
is
have a
good. I
virtual
don't
one
care how
coming up.
much or how little money, right? It's
Yeah.
like, let me do more of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to give a couple second description about the one you have coming up? I'll link that to this too.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it was cool. I reached out to you, and that was before, the pandemic. And I was just looking at, okay, what do I want to do to feed my soul more, and who do I want to connect with? So I strategically contacted you because I love you. I love what you're about. I love what you're doing. And you were so receptive to it. So yeah, I guess in less than a week, on Tuesday the 14th, I'm doing a writing workshop, calling it Writing to Connect. And I don't want to give too much away, but it's basically exercises to look within ourselves, ways that we can use writing to either get through things, create, connect with others. We're going to do a deep dive at one point, and we'll actually do a little bit of sharing with each other, which is either scary for some people, great, or and super cool because there can be people on there from all over now. And that's the beauty of the virtual world, right? That we
Yeah.
can connect with people around the world. So we'll just see how it goes.
Have you is that how you kind of have embraced writing as a healing tool for yourself too?
Yeah, I don't know how old I was, but I was thinking about that. I might have been around 8 when I really first started writing. And what I didn't realize at the time was that I was using it as an outlet, or almost like my therapy. So just being in a, we'll say, stressful household, I started writing about it, or poems or whatever. And I always had this notebook, hidden somewhere, and I would just write, write, write. So now I have a whole bunch of these notebooks, which I, plan to write my book someday, and maybe I'll use those. So anyway, what was the question?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was just curious, like the way that you're teaching people to use writing as a therapeutic tool, is that something that you found it to be for you too? I mean, of course it is for all of us, but as of late, or is that kind of how you got into writing, or both? It sounds like a little bit of both.
Yeah, that's how I got into it. And I remember one day my dad, who's no longer here, said to me, "You're a really good writer. You should do something with that." And at first I was like, how does he know that? Was he reading my stuff? And then I was like, okay. And he started buying me books of poetry. And that was really cool, because I didn't get to see my dad very often. So that was his way of trying to connect with me. And I still have many of those. And I'm going to look at those later, because maybe he wrote some notes in some of them. But so yeah, it started out that way. And with the I guess journaling for myself as a kid, the poetry that I would write, I had, a couple teachers in particular that recognized that, this was something that I was good at. And I didn't go that route at first. It was really just in the background. And I went into outpatient mental health and worked in that field for years. And, kind of taken it up and let it go. And then around '03, I worked in communications again. And at some point, I befriended, because I was working in public relations, an editor from the Herald Tribune, which was then owned by the New York Times. So it was kind of cooler. And I started, he took me on, I said, I wanted to write about people in our community who are making a difference, whether they had started a nonprofit, they did something for someone else. I mean, one was just about, someone who gave their kidney to someone. And through interviewing those people, I found that I really lit up, and I loved that process of sitting down, especially if I didn't know someone, and seeing them get present to, what it was for them, or, seeing them tear up and taking their photo. So that was a great time. And then most recently, I guess over the last year, it's funny actually, someone that things didn't work out with gave me a new journal and some cool pens, and it sat there a little bit, and I'd been dabbling here and there, but then this last year I just really started going for it. And now through what we're dealing with, I've been writing a lot, and I'm finding that it's just pouring out, and it's really good stuff. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I think it's so cathartic, and it's so interesting, like when you talk about writing as a kid, because I definitely did that too, but it ebbed and flowed with different periods of time where, like, maybe it didn't feel safe to write in certain ways because like your parents will find it, or because of, like, I think in younger or less mature days, for me, a lot of it was like venting and purging, which is the healing purpose, but also just felt really like dramatic and kind of like it was all negative stuff. So I remember going back on old journals and being like, oh my God, it's like so pathetic, and burning them later and whatever, even though it was a really healing exercise for me. But now I use it, for those hard times and the good things, and both. And there's less judgment on it. I don't care what how whiny it sounds, but it's interesting, like how long it took to get to that path.
Yeah, well,
decades to be comfortable just writing whatever the hell I wanted and not feeling like there was any negative side to it.
yeah, yeah. Well, better to be whiny that way than to all of our friends, right?
Yes. Yeah. If only everybody did that, including all of us,
Yeah. Yeah, I think everyone should have a really good therapist and be journaling.
Yeah.
Those
Go write about it for 10 minutes before you react or respond to it.
Yeah.
I think that would be amazing. I mean, I do that often when I'm really bugged out about something. I'll write about it, sit on it, and then sometimes even go back and read it before I respond. I mean, I'm that's a work in progress, but trying.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good process. And it's interesting what you said about the judgment, or, finally getting to a place of non-judgment. And that's how I like to start out the workshops, is like, this is total non-judgy time. If you find that you're doing stuff, like, that's when you just go, okay. And we don't judge each other. and this is just like, just appreciating ourselves and the process.
Yeah.
And no one has to read it either. You don't have to share anything. And yeah, it's funny to think back on those days. Remember the diaries with the little lock on it?
Oh yes, that's the point, right? Like we were taught that you have to like lock it up, and especially like if you have siblings
Yeah.
or if you're doing anything bad, which like I mean most of us were on some capacity. So it's like you're feeling all free to write it out, but then it comes with a consequence. And
Yeah.
now that's not the case. Like I don't care about anybody finding anything now. I just don't have the same judgment about it being only geared towards the negative, because when things are hard, I'm writing more as part of that cathartic process, and that's okay too, so
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
what are 3 words that you would use to describe the work that you do, or your role
It's so
or
funny.
creative
You
process?
had these questions and I'm like, I'm just gonna like go rogue. Okay. Three words to describe what I do, or
To embody your career, that embody your
okay.
career, maybe not like it could be what you try to deliver, it could be how you feel in that role, it could be any of that.
Okay.
There's no right or wrong answer.
Um, I guess I would say vulnerable, and and I know you just want the words, but vulnerable and
We
vulnerability
talk
is
about
become
why,
such
yeah.
a phrase lately, like in Brene Brown, but some of us have been doing that for a long time, right? So
Yeah.
uh vulnerable, um uh oh shoot, I shouldn't have tried to go rogue, should I?
No, you
Vulnerable,
can jump back to
three,
them.
okay, we'll come back to them.
So vulnerable is one. We'll keep it. Um, so if you knew you could be supported in anything when it comes to your career or, you know, this passion work that you do, what would it be? What's the ultimate
Supported.
dream? Yeah, if
If
you
I
knew
knew
you could be supported in
supported,
anything, yeah.
I guess I'm not getting it. If I could be
If you knew you could be supported in any of your biggest, wildest dreams that have to do with your career, that be?
oh, like
Like,
I
what's your
could
ultimate wish or vision, or what is like
oh,
the
okay.
dream?
Yeah. So I think if this is where you're going, if it's not, oh well. That I would like now and into the future, to be creating something that does make a difference for our community, gives back, and have some sort of a foundation for kids, and not just like at-risk youth, but um, kids just who feel that they don't have a safe place to write, feel like maybe they shouldn't, feel like they can't, maybe need help with writing, and bring in, let me think about this, and bring in some professionals, whether they are writers, whether they're teachers, whomever they might be, to assist these kids and give them an avenue and help them to do that, and have the funds for them to be able to do that. And I don't know, develop that a little bit more, but something along those lines.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
What needs to shift for you to get out of your own way? And it maybe is with that project, or it maybe is just everything.
Um, yeah, I've been thinking about that a little bit. I mean, I think it really is like, now I'm just coming back into my own. I went through like a time of great stress and a situation that was going on in my life that I just had to deal with. And it took a toll. And so now I'm coming back into being confident again and creative again. So it's probably just continuing that and taking chances and just asking. Like,
Yeah.
so, and connecting, that connecting is really huge. So I've been reaching out to people that I've known for years who are up to great things, people who, especially women who have created, wonderful businesses, and connecting with them, picking their brains, seeing, who they can lead me to. So I think it's just going to be more of that.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, there's going to be, some funds. You've been really great about posting things that that
Don't
can
even
help
start. It's
more.
like I could get all weird with my hair all day long. I'm like, whatever, we're on isolation. I'm just
Yeah. This
everybody's
isolation
lucky that I'm
thing.
wearing earrings and whatever pants today. So
I like those. Are those leather, or are they like
yeah,
metal?
they are like recycled, repurposed scrap leather that I designed from some other earrings, and then had a friend who's a leathersmith make them. So we have them at Wild Ginger. I'll get you a pair.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I might want those. All right, great. So we were talking about, what else were we talking about?
Well, what you're shifting to get out of your own way, and then like I'm just curious, do you see journalism as something like you're going to get back into, or?
Yeah, it has changed a lot, and the whole newspaper business. I was working with Style magazine as a retail editor, and after 20 years, Style magazine just, it was like gone, and we didn't have any notice. None of us. We just got an email saying, it's done. So that can happen at any time. So I think, I was already thinking virtually, and now with what's happening, even more so. So yeah, I guess it's really time to look into doing that again and how I could do that online. But I want to be paid for it. I don't want to just write for somebody and, oh, well, we'll put your stuff on our. No, there needs to be some sort of. I mean, we have value. We've worked hard. We have been doing what we do for a long time, and I know, I've spent a lot of money on it. So I think that we need to get what we're worth.
Yeah, I think that's the ultimate. Like that's the overlying concept of everything that we're talking about with all these Dharma sessions and with what I do personally and what I teach and all of that is like finding what it is that you love, but also finding a way to get paid for it, and bridging both of those so that you can make a living doing what you love, and it can be creative and fun, and you can be passionate about it, but you can also survive, and it's not like an either or, which I think people who haven't found their passion work really often look at it that way, as like
Yeah.
I can either have my job and my life and my financial success, or I can do what I love. And there's no way to be both things. And there's so much truth in that gray area that people don't realize.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that I can get into more. And I had mentioned to you that I was thinking about coaching. So I had started my master's in counseling years ago and just didn't quite finish, and thought once I really got into it, I don't know that this is really what I want to do for the rest of my life. And, that got put on hold. So I was thinking now, okay, I have this time, maybe I can finish online, or let's see. And then we were talking about coaching, and, to some degree, I've been doing that for a while. So I'll pursue that in some fashion and incorporate that as well, so that when I'm working with, my clients, that, there's some assistance with accountability and, just showing up as well.
Yeah. And I think that happens whether you do the formal training or not. By default, that's kind of what you're doing with your client work. It's what I end up doing with my client work. A lot of it is like moral support and encouragement, and, helping people get out of their own way and
Yeah, for sure.
lay off the excuses or whatever the limitations. There's so many deep layers to all of that for all of us.
Right. And then even when we're helping other people get out of their own way, we're still getting in our own way. So
Yeah.
it's like a constant work on ourselves, but helps us with that also. So it's
Yeah,
a great experience.
you see it when you teach it for sure.
Yeah,
I also noticed that. So it's like a good reminder to do the work at the same time.
absolutely.
So what would you say like your biggest life passion is? Is it writing, or is it something unrelated to your career?
Well, I think it's just people, and having people feel heard. So like that's really what I want to be a stand for, that whomever I come in contact, that they feel seen and heard, and um, that I'm a conduit for that. People feel expressed,
Yeah.
fully self-expressed. Yeah.
Well, I think there's your next word, expressed. It's perfect. You just snuck it right in there.
Note here.
Write it
Write
down.
that in my journal.
I know. I'm gonna have to rewatch the whole thing and find like what's the third one hidden in there.
Oh,
No, no,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just kidding.
Well,
Um,
it's definitely, connection. What I say, vulnerability, connection,
yeah.
um, self-expression, or yeah, something around being heard and having others feel heard. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Last advice or like words of wisdom for people wanting to kind of jump into passion work or a new career they love or a creative venture.
I think it would be to do the work ourselves then, and be in some sort of a process. Like I mentioned, I mean, sometimes it's hard to find a good therapist, but even if we don't feel like it's that bad of a time or we really need it, I think it's really good to just have something in place where we're getting shit out. And then, the journaling is great. And I also think that forgiveness is a huge thing. And I've been thinking about that a lot since everything's been going on. And that forgiveness, how much it frees us up, and that we can forgive other people without excusing their behavior, without condoning it. Okay, maybe it wasn't okay. But there are great forgiveness exercises out there. And I think it just takes a big weight off, so that then we're more open to connect with ourselves and our Dharma, our soul work, whatever it is. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite forgiveness exercise, or like one little quick one that you could throw out as something for people to try? I know I put you on the spot with this.
I'm going to save that for the next workshop.
Next class. Okay, that's fine. If you think of anything in the next 6 minutes, toss it out. So what the last question basically, and you just answered this about the forgiveness and reaching out to people too, but is like, what are you using this time of new beginning basically to create? Or are you working on anything besides this teaching, or what's going on with you?
I'm working on, well, I guess just keeping things in place, like keeping, the schedule is interesting. Like I kept thinking today was at 3, and I kept saying I have this call, this thing with Nicole at 3, and it was at 4, and I'm doing that all the time. So just keeping my yoga, in place, keeping my workouts at, a certain time, and, scheduling time that I'm working, and just for periods of time where I'm really concentrated on it, focusing, like not getting distracted by social media, because I seem to be doing more of that. I think for this need and want to feel connected.
Everybody is.
Yeah, and that it's finally not a bunch of bullshit about politics and all that, and I can actually see some good stuff from people, and seeing people being kind and useful. I'm also in the midst of something that I'll write about later. So I think just creating something new in my life, and letting things come into my life, and also being very gentle with myself and other people. I think it's really important right now to grant ourselves a lot of space. I'm doing a lot of wackadoo stuff, like leaving the freezer open all night, or forgetting to feed the dog, or whatever. And I could beat myself up about that stuff, but I think it's just, there's so much going on right now, and our brains are really loaded up, and it just reminds me that I need to get more of that out, and also really feel feelings right now. So I'm doing that too. I mean, not that I don't usually, but just not being afraid that if I feel sad, or I feel, whatever I'm feeling, that I really feel it, and use this time to process that. And kind of, it's like a great cleansing time in life.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, ideally, that's what everybody is going to take advantage of this with. And the forgiveness comes back to ourselves too, right? Like it's self-forgiveness on bigger picture things, but also just self-forgiveness for having these like perfectly imperfect days, where some days we don't get out of our pajamas, or some days we don't finish our project, or we forget to feed our dog, or whatever. I mean, like I'm having those moments too. And finding that sweet spot of self-compassion is really key, I think.
Yeah, huge.
More than ever.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard. This is a really unique opportunity for us, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to reach out with all of you talented creatives too, because it's a time to reinvent ourselves, and kind of look within, and really pay attention to what we're doing, and the intrinsic reward about that if we choose. And that's what's been so awesome to watch and hear about with all of you. And
yeah,
I feel like it's beginning, and it's just kind of like cracking in this really amazing opportunity. We'll see if my dog will start barking at yours.
They can have their own session.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dog's a little on edge through this too. You know, they feel all this, hey, snow.
Yeah. Yeah, and
And
they're stoked to have us around more, right? And then that makes me nervous because then I'm like, what happens when I'm not around all the time? Are they gonna like, is he gonna freak out?
yeah, yeah, I know. Well, I just plan on being around even more. And I think like there was something you said earlier that made me think about, how glad I am that I'm not a 9 to 5 in the office anymore, and that I can do what I do and create more out of that to do what I love. And then as soon as this crap is over, which, I know could be a while, but I'm actually, already starting to make lists of places that I want to go. And I haven't been on Pinterest in so long, but now is a great time. I mean, Pinterest is like one giant vision board, put all the
Yeah.
stuff up there that we want to do when we can, parties and traveling and the places I haven't been yet that I've been talking about going, and all of that. So it's just like keeping that out there in existence, to be reminded that it is going to be possible and
Yeah.
not in.
Yeah, and it may not be for a couple of months or a couple of years or whatever. Everything's going to look different than we thought before. But it is super important to know that that's going to come around, and we're going to have different modes of connection, and we'll be back out in the world, and we'll be able to go to the beach and have
Yeah.
conversations in person and all the things.
Yeah.
It'll change rapidly. We know that. So
Yeah. And this is good right now. This is all, it's all perfect what's happening. And we are seeing each other and talking to
yeah.
each other. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's the best case scenario for it to happen now. Even 10 years ago, it wasn't this easy to connect with others. So if we're going to be stuck at home, at least we can have some sort of face to face and human connection. And
Yeah, absolutely.
well,
Yeah.
Aimee, I'll link your event coming up, and I'm so grateful to chat with you and hear more about your path. And look forward to seeing what you create and reading all your stories when they get launched. Continue to get
Thank you. Yeah, it's really great to talk with you and everybody. So thanks a lot, Nicole.
great. Thanks, lady. Talk
Okay,
to you soon.
you too. Bye.